Preservationists claim that Over the Rhine is the largest collection of 19th century buildings still extant in the United States. Developers are busy converting those buildings into lofts and condos for the middle class, a trend that makes advocates for the poor, who still live in the neighborhood, very nervous. Welcome back. The 1970s witnessed the rise of historic preservation, the revaluation of historic properties in the center city, and the rediscovery of urban living after a century of flight to the hilltops and the creation of suburbs. In Cincinnati, those forces focused attention on Over the Rhine, where the region's poorest people have been concentrated. The result is that Over the Rhine is the most politically, socially, economically contested piece of real estate in the region, a place where conflicting visions of the future of society get projected and debated. I am joined this morning by Tom Dutton. Tom is an architect and a professor of architecture and interior design at the Miami University. Professor Dutton has been active in Over the Rhine People's Movement for 2 decades and is the director of the Miami University Center for Community Engagement in Over the Rhine. Tom, welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you.
Might just mention the Miami University Center. You bring students into Over the Rhine on a regular basis, and now some are living there for semesters at a time. Is that correct?
Yeah, we started the Over the Rhine residency program last fall, and we're going to do it again this fall. 12 students lived and worked in the community and engaged in service learning and community engagement projects, and severe, pretty interesting transformation of their learning by doing that.
Good. That's the sort of hands-on, immersive learning that really makes a difference in people's lives. This article that you wrote in the Cincinnati Beacon, by the way, is entitled Indian Reservations, Trojan Horses, and Economic Mix. And people can still find it on Cincinnati Beacon and on the website. You begin with this concept. Your basic concept is the interest right now in economic mix and developing economic mix in Over the Rhine. What do you mean by that, and why do you see this as problematic?
Right. I've been fascinated with the term for quite a while. I mean, it's been, as I say in the piece, Cincinnati's mantra for a while, and I decided to try and unpack what it means. It made me a little nervous, actually, that that term is used across all sections of Cincinnati. Low-income advocates as well as corporate leaders all talk about economic mix as a positive thing. And one of the things that worries me is that we are living at a time where we are now geographically more racially segregated, perhaps, than we've ever been in our history as a country. So what does economic mix actually mean in that context? Is it actually possible? And one of the things I started to do was to do some research, and it came across this person that wrote about the conflict within 1870s in our country between Native Americans and the American mainstream. And the thought was, can American Indians actually be assimilated into American culture? And that was the primary thought. The underside thought, the corollary dark side of that position, was that the only good Indian is a dead Indian. They're heathen savages, primitive. They're not able to be assimilated into American culture, and so the only thing that we could possibly do is to exterminate them, dispossess them of their lands, put them on reservations. I began to think about that relationship and what does it mean in the contemporary situation. So on one hand, we have economic mix. Over the Rhine can be everybody's neighborhood. We all can live there. Everybody should be able to live where they would like to live. But then the dark underside of that is a corollary belief of the gripping fear of the inner city. We have a deep, and this is why crime and safety is the #1 issue in Cincinnati, the gripping fear of the inner city. America fears blacks, America fears homeless. And in a sense, what do you do under that kind of condition? And I'm afraid that we're heading towards extermination, dispossession of people's lands. The reservation has become the prison in today's society.
You argue in here that those two competing views, mixed communities and this fear of the inner city, and particularly you put it in racial terms, that these are irreconcilable is the term that you use here. Do you think there's no way to make this work?
Well, it is the vision I hold on to. I mean, I might not use the term economic mix. I like to use the term that I've learned from community leaders, which is equitable community development, that there needs to be equality or across racial lines and class lines. And I mean, the vision, my attachment to the People's Movement from the get-go when I signed on in 1981, I was motivated by the vision being articulated by people like Buddy Gray and Bonnie Neumeyer and other leaders that over the Rhine should be a place that is economically mixed, racially mixed. That was the vision. That is the vision still.
But not on the terms that it's being pushed by the political and economic development league? Is that what you're saying? You're using the term?
My fear is that when I found this Indian metaphor, I mean this Indian situation, my fear is that, is there, perhaps breaks down into two kinds of camps. People say they want economic mix, but do they really believe it? Or there is a belief in economic mix, but the policies that are put in place actually undermine it. I mean, we could talk about 3CDC in that sense.
That's right.
I mean, 3CDC, I think, is trying to pursue a home ownership model. It's been pretty clear that it would like to basically increase home ownership in Cincinnati and over the Rhine. That's not necessarily a very bad thing at all. I mean, we need more homeowners.
And lots of people have talked about that for
right.
15 years or more.
The issue for me, however, is that I think that represents kind of a narrow effort or a narrow goal. Basically, 3CDC's stated planning principles, there's actually very good stated planning principles that they would like to see housing development for all incomes. But if you pursue only home ownership in that possible array that could be developed, then I fear that you're primarily pursuing a gentrifying model. I would love to hear 3CDC say something to this effect. Yes, more home ownership, but how about more rental for middle income people? How about more rental for lower moderate income people? How about more limited equity co-ops? How about more rent to own and renter equity projects?
So you would want 3CDC, who has become it's a private organization, but it is the development arm for the city at this point. I mean, that's the way it's functioning. And you would like them to broaden out their vision of the type of housing that could be developed there.
I'd like to have them not be in contradiction with their own planning principles. If they want to have a mix of housing types and over the Rhine, you don't just pursue home ownership as the main strategy. It seems like an exclusive line, and it's in contradiction with their stated principles.
Let's take a look at a couple of things specifically. Let's take a look at an institution like Findlay Market. It's right in the middle of over the Rhine. Lots of middle-class people from all over the area come there to shop, especially on the weekends. Cities invested lots of money to improve Findlay Market, and part of that is to encourage people of different backgrounds to mix there. Is that a wise policy? Or do you support the city's vision of Findlay Market in the middle of over the Rhine? Is that a good thing to be happening?
Yes, I mean, I think Findlay Market is a wonderful space where all kinds of people of all kinds of classes and races can come together. I mean, in that sense, it's one of the more truer public spaces that we have in over the Rhine and Cincinnati, urban America. I mean, those kinds of spaces are becoming more or less few and far between, actually. So it's not, we're in a situation now where there's been such a depopulation of over the Rhine. There's a lot of talk about concentrated poverty, but in a sense, there's been massive depopulation. So really, it's more like the New Orleans strategy that we need to be thinking about regarding over the Rhine. Can there be a right of return on the part of people to come back to over the Rhine, not just a home ownership level, a market rate level, but people that make, according to the plan, the Over the Rhine Comprehensive Plan of 2002, which called for a multiplicity of incomes to be represented in over the Rhine. So that's where are the programs to help support all that array.
Okay, there's one other point I just want to make sure I'm clear about. As an architect, I'm sure you appreciate the architecture in over the Rhine.
Absolutely.
And but anybody who knows the area knows that time and lack of maintenance takes a big toll on these older buildings, to the point that a lot of them reach the point where water is seeped in, they start to crumble, and what we end up with, and what we're going to be seeing on the screen here very quickly, is literally just empty lots in the streetscape. Right. Somebody's got to invest.
Right.
And so that investment money's got to come from development folks, because there isn't enough public money to do it, let's face it. It's got to come out of the private sector. And So you're not opposed to investment. You're just opposed. You just want to broaden the base. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I mean,
because this comes across a little bit
right.
more open than the article comes across, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Well, we could talk about that. That'd be nice to know how you think it's different, but because I don't think I'm being different in the sense because I've been calling for an array of development types for a long time. I mean, there does need to be more investment, absolutely. I think I differ with you a little in the sense that I would hope that the government needs to step up. I am not a big believer that the market can save over the Rhine. The market has been very good historically at creating more or less homogeneous geographic sections. This is why we have what we have in the American landscape. That's what neighborhoods and
suburbs are.
That's right. And so, I mean, when a lot of people talk about concentrated poverty and over the Rhine, they fail to talk about the other side of the coin, which is sort of a whiteness produced in the suburbs, right? A middle-class whiteness. I was always struck after the uprising in 2001 about when people would write letters into the community, into the Cincinnati Enquirer. They would say something to the effect, God, I'm so glad living out here in the suburbs I'm not dealing with any racial issues.
Right, yeah, as not seeing the big picture.
That's right.
I am out of time. Stimulating article. People can go to Cincinnati, the Cincinnati Beacon on the web, see it. Enjoyed having you. Have you back.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Next week, a discussion of the new Creation Museum opening in Boone County. Have a good week.